Welcome back. We're gonna do some courier missions real quick because I wanted something running in the background while I talk about what I want to talk about, and may as well increase my standings. And what I want to talk about is the CSM a little bit more, because there was a lot of discussion based on my previous video, and I want to clear some things up. Ooh, yeah, low sec warning, first time I ever saw that. Huh. Okay, a lot of people don't like mittens, and it is what it is. When the news was announced, people voiced their opinions on it. This is what the forums look like. Just a fraction of what the forums look like after the news was announced. And moderators were deleting posts right and left because a lot of these you won't see, like the one where Mittens is called a pedophile. That goes too far. I agree they should, delete those because that's not even making a point, But a lot of people weren't pleased. But what I said had nothing to do with whether I liked or disliked Mittens. And I want to make that very, very clear. You could comprise the CSM of the people that I enjoy playing with in EVE the most, and it's still a bad idea. It doesn't matter who's on the CSM. The CSM in itself is a bad idea. Now, I admit that when it comes to EVE, I'm a noob. And I listen. I read every comment, and I listen to what you guys say to help improve myself in the game. Whether I agree with it or not is one thing, but I listen. Now, I used to own a gaming community that had over 1 million unique users. I don't think EVE has ever been that big. It's definitely not that big now, okay? And I closed it down when my mother was diagnosed with cancer for the first time. I closed it down instead of selling it. Besides the fact that I really didn't, when someone you love is diagnosed with something like that, if you have money, you don't really care about that. It's like the last thing on your mind. But the reason why I shut it down and I gave the databases to other gaming communities so that they could thrive instead of selling it like the second community, well, not the second community I owned, but another community that I owned, was because just like on my channel, I'm the personality of that channel. If I leave, what is the sale value or the residual value for the person that buys it if I don't stick around? So that's why instead of selling it, I closed it down, gave the databases, like the gaming histories and reviews and whatnot to other gaming communities so that they could thrive. Because at the time, sites like GameSpot, there was another one because CNET and GameSpot weren't owned by the same company at that time. So CNET had one, ZDNet had one. I mean, there were, the big corporations were coming in, IGN, and drowning out the little guy, so to speak, because 1 million users in the gaming community it's nice, don't get me wrong, especially back then, but it's still not a lot. But it's more than what EVE has. So I'm talking from a position of experience. I know what's going to happen when EVE scales. I know what it's like to have to listen to a lot of people talking all at once. And I'm pretty sure most of the people saying that the CSM is the most wonderful thing has never had to deal with owning something where you have your users all talking to you at once and having that growth spurt and having to deal with that. And if you haven't, then, and I don't mean to be mean, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're expressing an opinion. You're not expressing knowledge. Okay? It is what it is. You can come here and express your knowledge on even game, but you don't know shit about growing a community. Okay? To that scale. One of the comments that came up a lot was that CSM 6 saved Eve. And if you really believe that, I'm very, very sorry to disappoint you. But you're wrong. Dust 514 saved Eve. Now, let's go back a little bit with this whole Incarna thing. And from what I was told and what was in interviews and whatnot, the employees inside of Eve didn't like the direction that Eve was taking with the buying the in-game items and whatnot, and they voiced their opinion. CCP did not listen. So when they found that CCP wasn't listening, they went to the CSM. And from what I read in an interview, and I think I even linked to this interview in one of my videos, the CSM was aware of it. And they thought, oh wow, CCP is gonna freak out when they hear about this. And they didn't do shit. So the person leaked it again to the CSM. Nothing happened. And only after going to the CSM and not getting a result, they leaked it out. And the community listened. They listened like a motherfucker, didn't they? And they started reacting. And that's when the shit hit the fan. People started unsubscribing. There were riots in Jeddah, or protests in Jeddah. I want to say riots, a protest. And lots of negative press. Then CCP, approximately a year before their baby is about to launch, Dust 514, commitments to Sony have a problem. Because you see, without Eve, there is no Dust. And that's why they had to get their shit together. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to imply that the owners of Eve don't care about the Eve universe. They do. But the truth of the matter is that they knew that people weren't going to like the direction that they were going. They went in that direction anyway, and the CSM did nothing to stop it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. CSM 6 failed. Because if CSM 6, or any CSM, was functional and working, that shit wouldn't have happened. It is what it is. And like I said, I don't mean any disrespect or anything, but you can't argue the facts. So CCP was faced with the real dilemma of losing not just one game, but two. They were forced to have to get their act together. And that, in my opinion, is what caused them to scramble. Because the CSM honestly does not have any power. All they are is a filter for the community. Supposedly, what you're supposed to be able to do is tell your concerns to the CSM, and the CSM is, you're trusting the CSM to filter or to relay your concerns and wants to CCP. Now, why anybody thought this would work is beyond me, because isn't Eve the universe where you're not supposed to trust anybody? Trust is supposed to be a valuable commodity. Why would you trust the person that scams people the most to actually fight on your behalf? Why would you do that? Why? Now, one point that Mittens made that I have to give him credit for, because I give credit where credit is due, is he said that a lot of people don't contact the CSM. Therefore, their issues aren't heard. And this is where the scale problem comes in. Because right now, the majority of players don't care about the CSM. The only reason why this election got more than any other is because Mittens did a drive because he wanted to get 10,000 votes. Now, I don't know where the fuck they got, there was more voting in this than there are real world politics. Where the hell do you guys live? Seriously, I live in a big city, millions vote. And they're all unique votes. In this election, how many of those were dupes? And I'm not saying that they don't have a right, because they're either paying Plex or they're paying money for those alternate accounts. But one person voting multiple times is not the same as one person voting one time. It's not like those were 10,000 unique votes. All accounts could vote. As long as it was a valid account, it could vote. And you can't tell me that people don't have alts in this game, because this game has a higher amount of alts than any other game. So, making it seem like the CSM voting was such a success, blah, 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 blah. Really? I don't have an emotional attachment to any game. I enjoy Eve. I enjoy many of the games that I play, but I don't get emotional attachments to them, because working in business, that's a liability. Because once you form an attachment, you can't do what needs to be done. And a lot of times, it's a tough call to have to do the things that you need to do. So I don't have an emotional attachment to the game. So I see it for what it is. And the truth of the matter is, if there was supposedly 59,000 votes in total, and there's over 350,000 people playing Eve, there's a problem. There's not enough people voting. And the answer, again, is not to get more people to vote. Because what if one half of the people, the account holders of the 350,000 people, contacted the less than 20 CSM people? And they have to, do they have the tools in place to actually deal with that kind of flooding of conversation? No. Do they even want to really have to deal with that many people? CCP has the means to be able to deal with them, but the CSM not so much. And it's not, and it shouldn't be their job. The real problem is that CCP needed to have a reorganization and a reality check, and to get focused on their goals. And that's what they seem to be doing. There was a reorganization. They seem to be getting the people in place. And all they said, I mean, one of the things that they kept saying is, we're listening to you now. We're listening to you. We want to hear from you. We're listening. We made a mistake. We heard you. Why do we need the CSM again? If they're listening, why would you want to put a third party, a stranger no less, in between having their ear? It's stupid. And it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale, which is why your bigger MMOs don't do it, because they know better. That direct connection that you have with your users is what stops them from leaving when better shit comes out. Real talk. That's what stops. With the CSM, you have two choices. Either the people are going to flip with the next term because they're voted out, or you're going to have a mitten situation where they're in for the long haul and you can't get rid of them. Mittens isn't going anywhere until the CSM dissolves. If you don't like Mittens, then you need to get on the CSM needs to die train, because he's going to manipulate it again and again and again because it's broken. It's broken. These kind of things are always popularity contests. That's all they are. Hell, even politics is I mean, if I could throw out our government and actually streamline things a little bit, I mean, it's a popularity contest. That's all it is. And I don't mean to... Warp drive active. I appreciate the effort that the CSM is trying to make. I really do. Even though I don't like Mittens, I don't like him, and I'm not going to front on that. But the truth of the matter is that it's going to come to a point where they can't deal with everything. The way that it is now, CCP is training people to connect with the CSM instead of them. And that is a very bad mistake. Back with the Incarna mess, CCP wanted to inject in-game items into the game, and people didn't like that. They wanted to add avatars and whatnot forced on them. People didn't like that. They're going to do it anyway. Let's be clear, but they're going to make it so that you can opt out. They had this information, and the key problem was that they didn't listen. For CCP to thrive, they have to listen. Having the band-aid of CSM giving them an opportunity not to listen is a horrific mistake that will once again come back to bite them in the ass. Because in the end, what's ending up happening? They announced that the avatars and stuff will come in later on down the road, but it'll be you'll be able to opt out of it if you don't want to. In-game items are coming into Eve through dust. So warp drive active. That's not rocket science. That's basic business 101. And you shouldn't have to. They had everything they needed to be able to make this decision a year ago. And they didn't listen. So having the CSM filter things just gives them the crutch not to listen. When you want to be heard, are you saying that you'd prefer to talk to a player in game than the people that actually have the power to make the decision to implement what it is that you're talking about? I mean, if that's what you're saying, yeah, that's just not a good business model. Most people don't like bureaucratic levels, particularly unnecessary ones. Here's a very good example. Brick and mortar retailers are starting to feel the crunch because companies like Blizzard are saying, you know what? I can distribute my shit on my own. I don't need you. I don't need to pay you anything. I'm going to do it on my own. And there's that pinch. They're getting rid of unnecessary layers. Another example of putting people in charge that really shouldn't be, the Yogscast right now is going through some serious drama because people acted out of turn. They weren't keeping a close eye, and shit hit the fan. They've accused a member of stealing a good amount of money. It's out there that one person that seemed to be a really good member of the community was thrown under the bus as a tactic to reorganize things. I mean, it's nasty. It's a really nasty thing going on over there because Lewis and Simon and whoever's in charge really they weren't really paying attention. This shit was able to go down because they hadn't properly delegated the responsibility. When you own something, you can't do everything, but it's key that you get the right people in place to do the job. And I don't mean to offend anybody here, but us voting on people in the player base is not ensuring that the right people are in place to do the job. Mittens is a CEO of an in-game corp. Nothing more, nothing less. He's the chairman of the CSM, but he has no real power with CCP. And neither does any of the other CSM people. The person that I voted for actually got in. Congratulations. So I really have no hate as far as the CSM is concerned. It's just not a strong foundation for growth. That's why nobody else is doing it. There's a reason why nobody else is doing it. Because it doesn't scale. The CSM is not set up to be able to deal with a larger amount of the vocal minority. Your average isn't going to say all that much. I mean, it's a shame that it was mentioned in the forums that CCP actually fired their community managers. That's sad, because your community managers are a level of customer support. And that's basically what the CSM should be, which is why it needs to be in-house. But basically what you describe it as a filter. They're your customer support. They're the people that's supposed to make you feel better about the game, listen to your concerns and your features and whatnot. They've outsourced their customer support. The CSM is like the Care Bear. This is what's so funny to me about this, is because there's so much hate for Care Bears in this game, but that's what CCP has done. They have Care Bear their customer support because they're too much of a pussy to listen to the people direct. What the fuck? Really? Really? CCP, grow the fuck up. Real talk. Man up. Listen to your people. Eventually, and I actually feel sorry for CCP because I really do, because it's going to take a pair of king-size balls to admit that they fucked up with this CSM thing. But eventually it's going to get to the point where they're either going to be phased out into nothingness, because coming from other MMOs, I can tell you now, your player base coming from other MMOs isn't going to give a fuck about the CSM. They're going to want to talk directly to the people they're paying their money to. Why would they want anything else? Really? Really? I mean, how many times have you had a complaint about something and you wanted to talk to the people in charge? You didn't want the little intern on the totem pole. You wanted the people in charge. When you go, like, to get dentist work done and you've got like a root canal, do you want the intern or do you want the dentist? When you go and you put your hands in the faith of an attorney, do you want the intern or do you want the one that has the experience to get your shit done? Everybody that says that they feel that the CSM is doing a wonderful job, blah, 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 they're basically saying they want the lower on the totem pole, not the higher on the totem pole. So what I'm hoping over this next year is that CCP listens, if they're listening, and at least if you don't want to get rid of them, get the customer support, your community managers in there, and get them listening. Make it so that there are CCP people that the player base can go to and interact with. Once a month or once a quarter, get on Twitch TV, broadcast you're going to have a stream, and talk to us. so that we can talk to you in return and tell you what we want direct. And then maybe have the CSM filter all that shit after we've told you direct. But don't have us going to some people that are only players in the game, telling them what we think when they're not even going to necessarily be around that long, and then expect good to come of that. In a game where trust is supposed to be, a valuable commodity, it's already been proven that concerns were expressed with Incarna, and the CSM didn't listen. And when that person didn't get, or those people didn't get the results they wanted, they leaked it. That's the problem. CCP needs a little reorg, a little bit more with like a human resources department or something, where the employees can voice their concerns without repercussion of getting fired or anything like that. And there needs to be a method in place where users can talk directly to the people that are making the decisions so that they can hear direct. So again, it's not a matter of me hating the CSM or hating the people on the CSM. Like I said, the person that I voted for got in. Woo! It's that I know from experience, having seen others go down that same road and fail. Go over to the Yogscast. You'll see a very good example of that right now. You have to have your key people in place. And the players in the game aren't the ones. It's the people that have experienced growing communities, dealing with people, learning how to scale, knowing how to scale, have scaled. Those are the people that you want in place. It is what it is. So, on that note, I hope that clears up my thing about the CSM. Again, it's not that I hate the CSM. Oh, I'm in Kildari space. Let's check this out a little bit. Wow, she looks actually good. She doesn't look like... Sometimes she looks like she's beaten with an ugly stick, and I hope they allow me to redo her ass. When they do this racial thing, I hope they allow me to redo her ass. I made it too flat, and I made her thighs too skinny. And anyway, let me get off of that topic. I hope that clears up what I meant about the CSM. Again, I don't hate them. It's just not going to work. It is what it is. And yeah, I will. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.